I am 81 years old, and I have spent the last 60 years of my life learning one lesson that most men will go to their graves never understanding, not because they are stupid, not because they do not care, but because nobody ever sat them down and told them the truth. I was married 3 times. The first marriage lasted 7 years. The second lasted 12. And my third wife, God rest her soul, stayed with me for 31 years until cancer took her from me 4 winters ago. 3 marriages, 3 very different women, and the same painful lesson that I was too blind to see until I was already old. Let me tell you something about being 81. When you reach this age, you stop caring about looking foolish. You stop worrying about what people think, because you realize that most of the things you spent your life worrying about were never worth a single sleepless night. And you start seeing patterns that were invisible to you when you were young and full of pride, patterns that become painfully obvious when you have nothing left to prove to anyone. The pattern I want to share with you today is about women, but it is not what you think. This is not about manipulation. This is not about games. This is not about tricks to get what you want. This is about a fundamental truth that I wish someone had beaten into my thick skull when I was 25 years old. A truth that would have saved my first marriage. A truth that would have saved my second marriage. A truth that, once I finally understood it at 67 years old, transformed my relationship with my third wife into the most beautiful thing I have ever experienced. And I am going to share it with you today, because you deserve to know, because life is too short to learn everything the hard way, and because I cannot stand watching young men make the same stupid mistakes I made. But first, let me tell you about my father. My father was born in 1922. He was a hard man, a quiet man. He worked in the steel mills of Pennsylvania for 43 years. He never missed a day of work. He never complained. He never asked for anything. And he never, not once in his entire life, told my mother that he loved her. I am not exaggerating. I lived in that house for 18 years. I watched my parents every single day, and I never once saw my father express affection, appreciation, or tenderness toward my mother. He provided, he protected, he fixed things when they broke, and in his mind, that was love. That was everything a man needed to do. My mother never complained, at least not to us children. But I remember her eyes. I remember the way she would look out the kitchen window sometimes, washing dishes, staring at nothing. There was something missing behind those eyes, something that had slowly drained away over the decades. When my father died at 74, my mother said something at the funeral that I will never forget. She said, "He was a good man. I just wish I had known him." 47 years of marriage, 2 children, a lifetime together, and my mother felt like she never knew her own husband. I swore to myself that I would be different. I swore that I would tell my wife I loved her, that I would be open, that I would communicate, that I would not repeat the sins of my father. And you know what happened? I failed anyway, because I made a different mistake. A mistake that is just as destructive as my father's silence. A mistake that almost every man in today's world is making right now without even knowing it. I told my first wife I loved her every single day. I communicated. I shared my feelings. I did everything the magazines and talk shows told me to do. And she still left me. She looked me in the eyes after 7 years together and said 4 words that shattered my entire understanding of relationships. She said, "I do not respect you, not I do not love you, not I'm not attracted to you, not we have grown apart. I do not respect you." I was devastated. I was confused. I had done everything right. I had been the opposite of my father. I had been sensitive. I had been caring. I had been emotionally available. And it was not enough. In fact, it was part of the problem. It took me 2 more marriages and another 40 years to understand what she meant, to understand what was missing, to understand the one thing about women that my father never taught me, because he never understood it himself. And now I am going to teach it to you. Stay with me, because what I am about to tell you goes against everything you have been taught. Everything society tells you about relationships, everything you think you know about what women want. But I am 81 years old. I have nothing to sell you. I have no reason to lie. I am simply an old man with a lesson that cost me 60 years to learn. And I do not want you to waste 60 years, too. Here is what nobody tells young men. Women do not fall in love with men they do not respect. They cannot. It is not a choice. It is not something they decide. It is built into the deepest part of their psychology, wired through thousands of generations of human survival. Let me say that again because it is important. A woman cannot love a man she does not respect. It is biologically impossible. You can be the kindest man in the world. You can be the most attentive. You can remember every anniversary, buy every gift, say every right word. But if she does not respect you, none of it matters. And here is where most men fail completely. They think respect is given. They think that if they are nice enough, accommodating enough, agreeable enough, that respect will naturally follow. It does not work that way. Respect is not given, not through cruelty, not through playing games, but through something far more subtle and far more powerful. Respect is commanded through having a life that does not depend on her. Let me explain what I mean. When I married my first wife, I was 23 years old. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, and I made her the center of my entire universe. Everything I did was for her. Every decision I made considered her first. Every dream I had included her at the center. I thought this was love. I thought this was devotion. I thought this was what women wanted. It was the beginning of the end. Because when you make someone the center of your universe, you become a satellite. You become a moon orbiting around a planet. And moons do not command respect. Moons are just there, predictable, reliable, taken for granted. My first wife did not leave me for another man. She left me because I had become boring, predictable, safe. I had stopped being a man with my own gravitational pull and had become a reflection of her own light. She never said it this way. Women rarely say it directly. But when I look back now with 81 years of experience, I can see it clearly. I had given up my purpose for her. I had given up my friends for her. I had given up my ambitions for her. I thought I was being romantic. Now let me be very clear about something. I am not telling you to be cold or distant or selfish. That is the mistake my father made. That is the other extreme. And it is just as destructive. What I am telling you is this. You must have something in your life that matters more than her approval. Read that again. Not more than her. More than her approval. When a woman sees a man who is pursuing something meaningful, something bigger than himself, something that he will not abandon just to keep the peace, something happens in her brain, something ancient and powerful. My third wife, Margaret, once told me something that changed my understanding of all my previous failures. We were sitting on the back porch watching the sunset, and I asked her what made our marriage different from my previous ones. She thought about it for a long moment, and then she said, "You stopped trying to make me happy." I was confused. She saw my confusion and she laughed. The laugh of a woman watching a man finally begin to understand something obvious. "When you stopped trying to make me happy," she said, "I could finally see who you actually were, and I could finally choose to love you instead of just needing you." I still remember those words like she spoke them yesterday. See, my first 2 marriages were built on need. I needed their approval. They needed my attention. We needed each other to feel complete. And relationships built on need are prisons. Both people are trapped. But when I stopped needing Margaret's approval, something shifted. I still wanted her. I still loved her. But I did not need her to validate my existence. I did not need her to tell me I was a good man. I already knew who I was, and that freedom, that independence, that sense of a man who is complete within himself, that is what commands respect. Not arrogance, not coldness, not games. A man who knows who he is, a man who has a purpose that burns inside him, a man who would survive and thrive, even if she walked out the door tomorrow. That man gets respect. Without it, everything else crumbles. Now I need to tell you something that will make some of you uncomfortable. Women test men. They test constantly. They test relentlessly. They test in ways that are so subtle, most men never even realize they are being tested until they have already failed. And before you get angry, before you call this manipulation or games or unfair, let me explain something important. They are not doing it on purpose. Most women are not even aware they are testing. It is not a conscious strategy. It is not something they plan. It is something wired so deep into their psychology that it happens automatically, like breathing, like blinking, and there is a very good reason for it. For most of human history, a woman's survival depended on choosing the right man, not the nicest man, not the most agreeable man, the right man, a man who could protect her, a man who could provide, a man who would not crumble when things got hard. A woman pregnant and nursing is vulnerable, completely dependent. If she chose a weak man, a man who would run at the first sign of danger, a man who would collapse under pressure, she and her children would die. So evolution built a testing mechanism into female psychology, a way to probe for weakness before committing, a way to find out who a man really is underneath his words and promises. And this testing never stops. Not when you are dating, not when you are engaged, not when you are married, not when you have been together for 50 years. The testing continues until one of you dies. I know this sounds exhausting. When I first understood it, I was angry. I thought, why can I not just relax? Why can I not just be myself? Why does everything have to be a test? But then I realized something that changed everything. The tests are not designed for you to pass or fail. They are designed to reveal who you truly are. Let me give you an example from my second marriage. My second wife, Patricia, would sometimes pick fights over nothing, absolutely nothing. I would come home from work and she would be irritated about something trivial, the way I hung up my coat, the tone of my voice on the phone, something I said 3 weeks ago that she suddenly remembered. For years, I reacted the same way. I would get defensive, I would argue, I would try to prove that I had done nothing wrong. I would apologize profusely, even when I had nothing to apologize for. And every time I did this, something died in her eyes. I could not understand it. I was being reasonable. I was being logical. I was trying to solve the problem. But she did not want me to solve the problem. She wanted to see how I would handle the storm. Would I crumble? Would I grovel? Would I abandon my own position just to make her happy? Or would I stand firm, stay calm, and refuse to be knocked off my center by her emotional turbulence? When I finally understood this in my 60s with Margaret, everything changed. Margaret tested me too. All women test. But now I understood what was happening. So when she would get irritated about something small, I would not react. I would not get defensive. I would not apologize for things I did not do. I would simply remain calm, present, unbothered, not cold, not distant, not dismissive, calm, and something magical would happen. The storm would pass. Her irritation would dissolve, and in its place would be something I had never seen in my first 2 marriages. Peace. She would look at me with soft eyes. She would touch my arm. She would come close and lean against me, and I could feel her relaxation, her trust, her surrender. Not surrender like defeat, surrender like safety. Like she could finally stop testing because she had found what she was looking for, a man who would not be moved by emotional weather. You see, women do not actually want you to fail their tests. They want you to pass. They are hoping, praying, desperately wishing that you will be the man who can handle their storms without breaking. Because when they find that man, they can finally rest. They can stop testing, stop pushing, stop probing for weakness. They can finally exhale and feel safe. This is what my father never understood. He thought ignoring a woman's emotions was strength. It was not. It was abandonment. He left my mother alone in her storms, and she spent 47 years feeling unseen and unknown. And this is what I did not understand in my first 2 marriages. I thought agreeing with everything, apologizing constantly, and trying to fix every emotional moment was love. It was not. It was weakness, and weakness cannot provide safety. The truth is somewhere in the middle. You must be present in her storms without being controlled by them. You must see her emotions without drowning in them. You must stand firm without being cold. It took me 60 years to find that balance. I hope it does not take you that long. I want to tell you what women actually need from a man, not what they say they need, not what they think they need, what they actually need deep in their bones, in that ancient part of their brain that has not changed in 100,000 years. And I need you to listen carefully, because this is where most men fail completely. Women need to feel safe, not physically safe. Although that matters too. I am talking about emotional safety, psychological safety, the kind of safety that allows a woman to relax completely, to stop performing, to stop protecting herself, to finally let down her walls and be fully seen. This is what every woman is searching for. This is what she dreams about when she imagines her ideal relationship. Not excitement, not passion, not adventure, safety, a container strong enough to hold all of her emotions without breaking. When I was young, I thought women wanted romance, so I gave them flowers and dinners and poetry, and it worked, for a while. But the romance always faded, the excitement always dimmed. And then what was left? In my first 2 marriages, nothing was left, because I had built the relationship on romance instead of safety, on excitement instead of stability, on feeling good instead of being good. With Margaret, I finally understood. She did not need me to be romantic. She needed me to be solid. She needed to know that when she fell apart, I would not fall apart with her. She needed to know that when she was weak, I would be strong. She needed to know that no matter what storms came, I would still be standing. This is the container I am talking about. A man must be the container for a woman's emotions. He must be able to hold her fear without becoming afraid. Hold her anger without becoming angry. Hold her sadness without becoming sad. This does not mean you have no emotions. This does not mean you are cold or unfeeling. It means you are not controlled by her emotions. You can witness them without being swept away by them. When Margaret was diagnosed with cancer, I understood this more deeply than ever before. She was terrified. She would wake up in the middle of the night, shaking, crying, convinced she was going to die. And every part of me wanted to fall apart with her. Every part of me wanted to hold her and cry and tell her I was just as scared as she was. But that is not what she needed. She needed me to hold her and say, "We will face this together. Whatever happens, I am here. I am not going anywhere." She needed my strength more than my sympathy, and I gave it to her. For 4 years, through the surgeries, through the chemotherapy, through the long nights, I was her rock. I cried too, but not in front of her. I fell apart too, but not when she needed me to be whole. This is what it means to be a man for a woman. It is not about being emotionless. It is about being in control of your emotions so that she can be out of control of hers. It is about being the calm in the center of her storm. And when you can do this, something happens. She trusts you completely. Not with her money, not with her secrets, with her soul. She reveals parts of herself that she has never shown anyone. The ugly parts, the shameful parts, the parts she has hidden her whole life because she was afraid of being judged, and she gives them to you because she knows you can handle them. This is intimacy, real intimacy, not just physical closeness, but psychological closeness, the kind of closeness where two people truly know each other, truly see each other, with all their flaws and wounds and broken pieces. Most people never experience this. Most marriages are two strangers living in the same house, hiding from each other, protecting themselves from each other. But when a man can create true safety, true containment, true presence, something magical becomes possible. Two people become one. Not in a poetic way, in a real way. In a way where her pain is your pain and your joy is her joy. Where the boundary between self and other begins to dissolve. Margaret and I had this in our last years together, especially as she was dying. We reached a level of closeness that I cannot even describe. We did not need words anymore. I could feel what she felt. She could feel what I felt. And when she finally passed, a part of me went with her. I am still here. I still have my life. But there is a hole in me now that will never be filled. That is what real love costs. And that is what real love gives. It is worth everything you will pay. I want to tell you what women actually need from a man. Not what they say they need, not what they think they need. What they actually need, deep in their bones, in that ancient part of their brain that has not changed in 100,000 years. And I need you to listen carefully, because this is where most men fail completely. Women need to feel safe, not physically safe. Although that matters too. I am talking about emotional safety, psychological safety, the kind of safety that allows a woman to relax completely, to stop performing, to stop protecting herself, to finally let down her walls and be fully seen. This is what every woman is searching for. This is what she dreams about when she imagines her ideal relationship. Not excitement, not passion, not adventure, safety, a container strong enough to hold all of her emotions without breaking. When I was young, I thought women wanted romance. So I gave them flowers and dinners and poetry, and it worked, for a while. But the romance always faded. The excitement always dimmed. And then what was left? In my first 2 marriages, nothing was left. Because I had built the relationship on romance instead of safety, on excitement instead of stability, on feeling good instead of being good. With Margaret, I finally understood. She did not need me to be romantic. She needed me to be solid. She needed to know that when she fell apart, I would not fall apart with her. She needed to know that when she was weak, I would be strong. She needed to know that no matter what storms came, I would still be standing. This is the container I am talking about. A man must be the container for a woman's emotions. He must be able to hold her fear without becoming afraid. Hold her anger without becoming angry. Hold her sadness without becoming sad. This does not mean you have no emotions. This does not mean you are cold or unfeeling. It means you are not controlled by her emotions. You can witness them without being swept away by them. When Margaret was diagnosed with cancer, I understood this more deeply than ever before. She was terrified. She would wake up in the middle of the night, shaking, crying, convinced she was going to die. And every part of me wanted to fall apart with her. Every part of me wanted to hold her and cry and tell her I was just as scared as she was. But that is not what she needed. She needed me to hold her and say, "We will face this together. Whatever happens, I am here. I am not going anywhere." She needed my strength more than my sympathy, and I gave it to her. For 4 years, through the surgeries, through the chemotherapy, through the long nights, I was her rock. I cried too, but not in front of her. I fell apart too, but not when she needed me to be whole. This is what it means to be a man for a woman. It is not about being emotionless. It is about being in control of your emotions so that she can be out of control of hers. It is about being the calm in the center of her storm. And when you can do this, something happens. She trusts you completely. Not with her money, not with her secrets, with her soul. She reveals parts of herself that she has never shown anyone. The ugly parts, the shameful parts, the parts she has hidden her whole life because she was afraid of being judged, and she gives them to you because she knows you can handle them. This is intimacy, real intimacy, not just physical closeness, but psychological closeness, the kind of closeness where two people truly know each other, truly see each other, with all their flaws and wounds and broken pieces. Most people never experience this. Most marriages are two strangers living in the same house, hiding from each other, protecting themselves from each other. But when a man can create true safety, true containment, true presence, something magical becomes possible. Two people become one. Not in a poetic way, in a real way. In a way where her pain is your pain and your joy is her joy. Where the boundary between self and other begins to dissolve. Margaret and I had this in our last years together, especially as she was dying. We reached a level of closeness that I cannot even describe. We did not need words anymore. I could feel what she felt. She could feel what I felt. And when she finally passed, a part of me went with her. I am still here. I still have my life. But there is a hole in me now that will never be filled. That is what real love costs. And that is what real love gives. It is worth everything you will pay. Now I want to talk about why most men fail with women. Not some men. Most men. I have watched my sons struggle. I have watched my grandsons struggle. I have watched friends, neighbors, colleagues, all repeating the same patterns I repeated, all making the same mistakes I made, and the reason is always the same. They are trying to get something from women instead of trying to become something for themselves. Read that again. They are trying to get something instead of trying to become something. When I was young, I approached relationships like a consumer. What can this woman give me? Can she make me happy? Can she make me feel good about myself? Can she fill the emptiness inside me? This is the wrong question. The right question is, what kind of man am I becoming? What do I stand for? What is my purpose? What would my life look like if no woman ever loved me? When you answer those questions, when you build a life based on those answers, Women become a natural byproduct. They are drawn to you not because of what you do, but because of who you are. But most men never do this work. They spend their lives chasing women instead of chasing purpose. They spend their energy trying to impress instead of trying to improve. They wake up at 50, 60, 70 years old, and they realize they have no idea who they are outside of their relationships. I know because I was one of them. My first 2 marriages failed because I was incomplete. I needed those women to fill a hole inside me, and when they could not fill it, when no woman can ever fill it, I blamed them. I thought I had chosen the wrong women. I thought I was unlucky in love. I was not unlucky. I was unfinished. The hole I was trying to fill with women could only be filled by myself, by becoming the man I was meant to be, by finding purpose, meaning, direction, by answering the question that every man must answer, what am I here for? When I finally found my answer in my early 60s, everything changed. I stopped needing women. I started choosing them. I stopped trying to get love. I started giving it. I stopped asking what a woman could do for me. I started asking what I could do for the world. And that is when Margaret appeared, not because I was looking for her, but because I had finally become the kind of man that a woman like her would want to be with. You see, the quality of woman you attract is directly connected to the quality of man you have become. If you are needy, you attract women who want to be needed, and those relationships are prisons. If you are empty, you attract women who are also empty, and those relationships are mutual parasitism. But if you are complete, if you are purposeful, if you are a man who stands for something, you attract women who are also complete. Women who want to be with you, not because they need you, but because you make their already good life even better. Margaret was like this. She did not need me. She chose me. And because she chose me freely, her love meant something. It was not desperation. It was not settling. It was genuine appreciation for who I was and what I brought to her life. Most men will never experience this. They will spend their entire lives in relationships based on need, clinging to women who are clinging to them, both people drowning, both people grabbing onto each other, neither person able to swim, and they will call this love. It is not love, it is survival. Real love is 2 people who can swim, choosing to swim together. So I want you to ask yourself a question, and I want you to answer it honestly. If every woman on earth disappeared tomorrow, what would you do with your life? Would you still have purpose? Would you still have direction? Would you still wake up in the morning with something meaningful to pursue? Or would you be lost? If you would be lost, you have work to do, not relationship work, self-work. You must build a life that does not depend on a woman's presence. You must find your mission, your purpose, your reason for being. You must become complete within yourself. Only then can you truly love a woman, because only then will you have something real to offer, not your neediness, not your emptiness, not your desperate hunger for validation, but your fullness, your strength, your purpose. That is what a woman wants. That is what a woman needs. And that is what most men never become. Do not be most men. I am 81 years old. I have been sitting here talking to you for almost an hour, sharing things I have never told anyone except Margaret. And I want to leave you with something you will remember for the rest of your life. Here is the final lesson. The lesson that took me 60 years to learn. The lesson that cost me 2 marriages, countless sleepless nights, and more pain than I care to remember. A woman does not want a perfect man. She wants a real one. All of these things I have told you, about respect, about testing, about pursuit, about safety, they all point to one simple truth. She wants to see the real you, not the version of you that is trying to impress her, not the version of you that is saying what you think she wants to hear, not the version of you that is performing, pretending, playing a role. The real you, with all your flaws, with all your rough edges, with all your imperfections. When I was young, I thought I had to be perfect to be loved. I hid my weaknesses. I covered my mistakes. I pretended to be more confident than I was, more successful than I was, more certain than I was, and women could feel the performance. They could sense that something was off, that they were not getting the real thing. With Margaret, I gave up the act. I was too old, too tired, too broken by my previous failures to pretend anymore. I showed her everything, my fears, my failures, my insecurities, the parts of myself I had been hiding for decades, and something incredible happened. She loved me more, not less. Because when you show someone your true self, and they stay, you know their love is real. You know it is based on who you actually are, not who you are pretending to be. And that is the only kind of love worth having. So here is my challenge to you. Stop performing, stop pretending, stop trying to be the man you think women want. Instead, become the man you actually are. Find your purpose, the thing that sets your soul on fire, the thing you would do even if no one was watching, even if no one cared, even if you never made a penny from it. Build your character. Tell the truth, even when it costs you. Keep your promises, even when it is hard. Stand for something, even when everyone around you is sitting down. Face your demons, the trauma you have been running from, the wounds you have been covering up, the parts of yourself you are ashamed of. Look at them, accept them, integrate them, and then from that place of completeness, choose a woman. Not out of need, not out of desperation, not because you are afraid of being alone, but because you genuinely love her, because she adds something to your already full life, because being with her makes both of you better than you would be apart. That is what I had with Margaret, and I want you to have it too. I will not be around much longer. At 81, you learn to count your remaining years on one hand. But if I can save even one young man from the mistakes I made, then this hour has been worth it. Remember what I told you. Respect before love. You cannot skip this step. If she does not respect you, she will never truly love you. The tests are not attacks. They are opportunities. Pass them by staying calm, staying present, staying centered. Pursue from strength, not weakness. Want her, so do not need her. Choose her, do not cling to her. Create a safety. Be the container for her emotions. Hold her storms without being destroyed by them. Become complete. Build a life of purpose. Fill your own hole before asking a woman to fill it for you. And above all, be real. Show her who you actually are. Let her love you, or leave you based on truth, not performance. If you do these things, you will have the kind of relationship that most men only dream about, the kind of partnership that gets deeper and more beautiful with every passing year, the kind of love that transforms both people into the best versions of themselves. I had 31 years of this with Margaret, 31 years of real love, real partnership, real intimacy, and not a single day goes by that I do not thank God for every moment. This is what is possible. This is what is waiting for you on the other side of your growth. Do not waste 60 years like I did. Start today, right now. Become the man, and the woman will come, I promise you.